These are some of the best whiskies of 2025, according to my patrons. My patrons know a lot about whiskey. I asked them which are some of the whiskies of 2025 that have stood out to you so far, and some of their picks are incredible that I actually rushed out and picked them up myself because they're amazing. And at the end of this video, I'll tell you what my personal pick of the year is. So if you're not sure what to buy next, this is the video to watch. So hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and let's jump in. So this first whiskey, this list is something actually quite a few patrons told me that they have really enjoyed. I think this one is a limited release. It's the oldest whiskey they've now released from this distillery. I tried it at Dramfest. You might be able to guess it already. It's like from a distillery which a lot of enthusiasts are going nuts for, and it is the Ardnamurchan 10. So this whiskey is bottled at 50%. It's mainly aged in ex-bourbon barrels, and it's that classic Ardnamurchan style with the light fruit with that little tiny touch of salty smoke that comes through as well. But there was one I actually had with it side by side from another patron. They recommended this whiskey. I think this is probably one of the whiskies that I think has been flying under the radar, probably the most of any of the selection here today. And this is from a distillery that I don't think gets enough love from whiskey enthusiasts. You might have remembered the Kingsbarns Dream to Dram. This was like one of their first releases. They don't release this anymore, but they now have a standard release called the Ducot. I had a patron say, this is incredible value and super under the radar, and they are loving everything from Kingsbarns and particularly the Ducot. And so, yeah, I picked up a bottle and I even had it side by side by this, and it really stands up. This is a great whiskey. Not enough people are talking about it. This is bottled at 46%. It's aged in ex-bourbon barrels and some STR barriques. If you don't know what STR is, go watch my How Whiskey's Made video where I talk with Cotswolds about what STR casks are.
It's all the good elements of a red wine barrel and none of the bad. And that's what an STR is.
But again, this is that kind of like sweet tropical fruit, a little bit of that richness from the STR cask coming through. Probably my most underrated pick, and definitely in the line for my whiskey of the year, I think this. So the next whiskey on this list is fascinating because I never thought I'd be able to get a whiskey from this distillery at this price. It's something that's a way higher ABV than normal. I just need to tell you about today's sponsor that's made this video possible. It is Pre-Alcohol by ZBiotics. So as you know, I'm a big fan of drinking quality over quantity for the flavors, but sometimes it can sneak up on you, especially at a tasting where I have mates around and we try all these like amazing top shelf drams. So that's why I always hydrate, get lots of sleep, and I sometimes will have a Pre-Alcohol by ZBiotics. It's a genetically engineered probiotic made by PhD scientists designed to break down the byproduct of alcohol that builds up in your gut, and it's that byproduct is what can leave you feeling off the next day. So if you're interested or even not interested, if you can do me a favor by clicking on the link in the description or scanning the QR code right here, and you'll get 15% off, free shipping, and if you're still not really that sure, there's also a money back guarantee. So it's like win-win. Anyway, back to whiskey. Basically what was recommended from my patrons was a Signatory Vintage 100 proof. They got the 10-year-old Craigellachie, which they said was an absolute standout. I don't have that bottle, but it's a good chance to talk about Signatory's 100 proof series. So what is it? So Signatory released these things called their 100 proof series, where basically they buy bottles from different distilleries, they release it under their own name, and 100 proof. I believe that's the UK proof, so that's 57.1%. And this one's a 13-year-old. It's from Speyside. You can tell by the color. It's very rich. It's round. It's got like some nice kind of spiced notes. So what distillery is it? Well, it's from a very, very famous distillery, one that's known as being very premium, and one that I don't normally buy from because I find their prices, pretty overpriced. They take a lot more of the rich and luxurious and premiumization part of the market. So it's not really me. I'm not a rich banker. I'm just some random guy on YouTube. So I want good value. So this here, so what they tell me, this little M on here indicates that this is probably from the Macallan distillery. So what's crazy is I got this for around $100 New Zealand, and it's far cheaper than the 12-year-old Macallan, whereas this is a 13-year-old. It's 57.1%. And it's aged in first fill and refill Oloroso sherry butts. So this is incredible. Look, if anyone gives me a Macallan, I will happily drink it. The distillery character is great. I just find for your money, I think there's other whiskies out there that, are probably just as good, if not better. But getting this at this price is incredible. So this is not so much saying you should get this kind of signature vintage 100 proof. It will be hard to get your hands on, but just as a principle, make sure you're checking out the independent bottlers. They look a bit confusing when you first see them. You're like, what's going on here? But if you do a little bit of research, dig a little bit deeper, you can get some absolute gems. And I find everything from the 100 proof series has been great. So the next whiskey on this list is something I didn't think I'd be recommending, but a few years ago I talked a lot about the Oban 14. It's one of Diageo's distilleries, and one of you patrons also said they forgot how good it is. And I found the time with Clynelish 14, came back to it the other night and I was like, this is good whiskey. But speaking of that, another patron talked about the Decadent Drams Mortlock 19. It's one of these whiskies from Diageo. Someone else mentioned the Rosale 12. I haven't had it yet, but I did pick up something from Diageo, and this is one of my favorite whiskies from them. As I talked about in my affordable whiskey video, I got this Singleton 19-year-old bottled at 54.6%, only $122. Again, you probably won't get it for this price, but be on the lookout. Check out your local bottle store. There's a lot of these special releases from Diageo. So every year they basically do a special release because they own lots and lots of distilleries, and they often release whiskies from a bunch of the different distilleries called a special release. And normally they're really expensive, but a lot of the stock from a few years ago is still sitting on shelves, and we're seeing massive discounts on it. So I saw this for $120, which is absolutely wild because I don't, think of an 18-year-old. There's no way I'll get it for a price like this. So just keep your eye on out for that. So I do agree there are some gems out there, and it's fantastic stuff. So the next whiskey is actually from a range I also thought I wouldn't be talking about, and that is from the Ardbeg Distillery. They've done a lot of these big marketing campaigns that kind of turned me off them for a while. But recently I tried the Smokyverse and I really enjoyed it. And the marketing was all around just how the whiskey was made, the way they were having a slow mash and stuff. And I was like, this is cool. This is great. And then one of my patrons said their favorite from Ardbeg's special release range was this one here, the Ardbeg Bizarre-Barbecue. There are certain whiskies I always find a lot of those kind of bacon and kind of barbecue notes. I'd say the Port Charlotte Isla Barley bottles I always get is just like bacon's cooking in the kitchen. What's cool with this one is this is that dialed up. So this is bottled at 50.9%. Let's try it. Oh yeah, it's so good. The salty, the seaweed, your classic Ardbeg kind of notes, but it's just really dialed up in that meatiness. Great call. I'm enjoying this whiskey. If you can get it for a good price, I recommend it. I think out of my Ardbegs, this is probably my favorite on the shelf right now. I do need to pick up another Ugadel though. This year I was at Dramfest, and what's interesting is a lot of distillers come from all over the world. We had Dave Broom there, Arden American, Springback, all the big distilleries are there. But what's also cool is a bunch of the New Zealand distillers are there. And what was interesting is a lot of people who went to Dramfest this year came away from it saying this whiskey was their favorite, which was kind of wild because these people are Scotch lovers. And one of my patrons said this was his surprise dram of 2025. It is a single cask from this distillery. So normally I say of this distillery, it's very approachable, it's light, it's fruity, it's similar to a Glenmorangie or a Glenlivet of New Zealand, which has been good. But often I'm seeking out those the stuff with a little bit more punch, a little bit more flavor, a little bit more layers of complexity I can sit on. Because I've got a lot of those kind of easy sipping whiskies, I want to kind of really turn things up, and that's what they've done. So this is the Pocono single cask, and this one is the Vino de Nara. I'm going to pronounce that wrong. I'll show you a B-roll shot. This is bottled at 56.2%. I had someone else ask me on a Q&A session on Patreon. So if you're not on Patreon, I sometimes do these Q&A sessions where you can ask anything you want, and I do videos on there. One person on there recently asked if I can go to New Zealand, just bring one bottle back. And I think this has changed. I think if you asked me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have said this, but I think this might be one of my favorite whiskies I've ever had coming out of New Zealand. And it's not too overpriced. You can get it for under $200. Oh yeah, it's just really nice. There's a really nice floral note in this. Big basket of fruit, specifically a really ripe apple, some orange notes, just delicious stuff. So this is actually, it started in a first fill bourbon cask and then finished 18 months in a Spanish Vino de Naranja orange wine cask. Really interesting stuff. Okay, the next whiskey on this list is going to be one of those classic good value. It's a little bit more special. It's something, if you're really into your sherry casks, the rich and spiced part of the flavour tree, if that's kind of your jam, like literally jam flavours, dried fruits and that sort of thing, this is for you. I was kind of put off by for a little while because I bought a bottle a few years ago. I think I even said it in one of my old videos back in like 2019 or something. And like people go nuts over it, and I got a bottle, and I was like, I don't know, it's pretty astringent, didn't like it. And it was from Glenallachie. It had like the old Flintstones sort of font, and I was just never really a fan. In fact, I never actually finished the bottle. Don't know what it was. It's got all the stats right, but that's the thing. It's not about just getting the stats. Like, is the flavor good? Is it good for your palate? And I know a lot of people enjoyed this, but I didn't. But I recently picked up the later release, and these later releases have had a lot more of Billy Walker's influence, and you can definitely see a big change. So this one here is the 12-year-old. This is fantastic. I am loving this whiskey. However, the one that was mentioned by my patrons was the 15-year-old. I agree, the 15 is fantastic. I had a mate just give me a dram recently, and it is incredible whiskey. And if you want to sit down on that Friday night with some good friends and take your time, the 12 is a great go-to. But if you want something that's just that level above that, get the 15-year-old. Another person mentioned the Glengarry 15, which you can get, I think, in some airport releases. I've got the 12 here. I've also tried the 15 though, and that is fantastic juice. It's a great pick. We have a couple more, and then I'll tell you what my pick of the year is. So the first one, this is a classic. Normally you can never get your hands on it. In fact, I haven't bought from this distillery for over 5 years because it's all bullets, there's high demand from it. It's great whiskey, and you guessed it, it is going to be from Springbank. This is the Springbank 12. This one's from a few years ago. It's 57.1%. Yeah, one of you said it's just too good, perfectly balanced between the fruity, the dirty, the complex, and just the right amount of peat to give you a godly finish. And I luckily got this year's one. It's super exciting, and what's been interesting is actually trying this latest release against one of the older release. One thing I will say is I do feel like the funk is not as strong on this recent release as it is on this one. This one feels a lot more rounded and rich. Yeah, just more elegant version of a Springbank. It's still definitely a Springbank, whereas this older one I found had a lot more of that kind of industrial, farmy funk. To be fair, when I'm going for a Springbank, that's actually what I prefer, but also I've given it to other people who really dislike the funk. They'd prefer a much more kind of a cleaner spirit. Take that in mind. I don't know if this is just a one-off, that it's become a little bit less dirty. Maybe they cleaned out their stills or something. Who knows? Okay, now we're on to one of my big surprising whiskies that I've really enjoyed this year, and it is actually from Islay. It's bottled at 50%. I believe this is now their new standard release. It is aged in ex-bourbon casks. They use worm tubs, and it's quite a recent distillery, and it is the Ardnahoe Infinite Lock. So this is a new distillery on Islay. I think Jim McEwen helped at the start when it got started. It is a fantastic, big, heavy and meaty, salty whiskey. The last one was a 5-year-old. I don't know what this one is. Natural colour, non-chill filtered. I don't believe it has an age, but the thing is with those younger peaty whiskies, as I've always said, sometimes age doesn't really matter. If you want a big, punchy, smoke, heavy whiskey, you sometimes want something a bit young. This definitely, that's what it is. But it doesn't taste too spirity though, too youthful. But I'm keen to hear from you. What are some of your favourite whiskies you've had this year? Let us know in the comments below, because a lot of us are searching for that next bottle to buy. What's interesting, what's standing out. But anyway, if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks to my patrons for making this video possible. But above all, share and enjoy. Beauty.